Out in the oldest, darkest reaches beyond our solar system, where sunlight is no longer illumination but a fading historical memory, a human-made object continues its endless drift. Voyager 2, launched in 1977, was never meant to return. It was designed to cross planets, gather data, and then fade into silence as it left the solar system behind. Instead, it kept going. Past Jupiter, past Saturn, past the heliosphere's final boundary, it entered interstellar space as humanity's most distant envoy. For decades, it did what it was built to do: listen, measure, transmit faint whispers back across the emptiness. Then, without warning, something changed. It began as a subtle irregularity buried in the deep space telemetry stream. A repeating fluctuation every 11.2 seconds, too precise to be natural noise, too structured to be random interference. Engineers initially dismissed it as a sensor artifact or compression error introduced by distance and degradation. But when older archived data was reprocessed using modern AI filtering systems, the pattern reappeared, not once, but multiple times, embedded across separate time windows. It was not fading. It was strengthening. And more unsettling still, the signal was not stationary. Triangulation from multiple ground stations revealed something extraordinary. The source was moving in parallel with Voyager 2's trajectory, maintaining a constant relative distance as if it were deliberately accompanying the spacecraft. Not orbiting. Not drifting. Tracking. When scientists attempted to simulate the motion using known physics, every model collapsed under contradiction. The object did not follow gravitational constraints in any recognizable way. Instead, it behaved like something continuously correcting itself, adjusting its course in response to Voyager's faint transmissions. Almost as if it was listening. Then came the second anomaly. Inside the signal structure, researchers discovered inverted hydrogen resonance patterns, frequency arrangements based on the most fundamental element in the universe, but mathematically reversed and folded into recursive loops. It was not random noise. It was structured encoding. Something had learned how to manipulate universal constants into a communicative framework. At first, there was hesitation. Could this be a rare plasma interaction? A distortion in the interstellar medium? A coincidental alignment of cosmic radiation bursts? But the data refused to behave like coincidence. Every attempt to isolate the signal revealed deeper organization beneath it. Layers of structure embedded inside structure, like a message written in a language that rewrote itself as it was being decoded. Some researchers described it as mathematical intentionality, a pattern that behaved like thought, not physics. The next discovery changed the tone of every discussion. Within the signal, binary sequences began forming consistent geometric transformations when visualized. Spirals, nested symmetry, fractal recursion, repeating angular relationships. Not random formations, but shapes resembling structured symbolic encoding. Some patterns, when compared against global archaeological databases, bore disturbing similarities to ancient terrestrial glyph systems, Sumerian markings, geometric petroglyph alignments, and desert formations like the Nazca lines. The implication was not that ancient civilizations had seen this signal, but that the same underlying structural logic might have appeared across time in different contexts. That idea fractured the assumptions of the analysis teams. Then came the first sign of response behavior. A neural decoding system trained to interpret extraterrestrial communication models was used to simulate the signal structure. Instead of producing a translation, it began generating predictive continuations. It did not decode the message, it extended it. The AI started anticipating the next phase of the pattern with increasing accuracy, as if the signal itself contained a recursive intelligence loop designed to invite interaction. At the same moment, Voyager 1, billions of miles away, registered a matching magnetic fluctuation in interstellar space. 2 spacecraft. 2 separate data streams. 1 synchronized anomaly. That was when the question changed. It was no longer, "What is this?" It became, "What is it doing to us?" Then, abruptly, Voyager 2 went silent. Not partially. Not intermittently. Completely. At first, engineers assumed a power fluctuation or aging subsystem failure. After nearly 5 decades in deep space, degradation was expected. But within minutes, every deep space network station across the globe reported identical signal loss at the exact same timestamp, 1437 Coordinated Universal Time. Spain, Australia, California. All at once. Statistical probability collapsed to near zero. This was not failure. This was synchronization. And then, 5 minutes later, a narrowband transmission arrived from deep space. It carried no recognizable modulation pattern, but its energy profile matched emissions typically associated with extreme astrophysical phenomena. Except no such object existed near Voyager 2. The source was moving closer. A classified emergency briefing circulated among restricted networks within hours. A foreign object had altered its trajectory in response to Earth-based signal transmissions. Every time a probe, antenna, or monitoring system emitted a directed query toward Voyager 2's region, the object adjusted its course slightly, learning the pattern of human communication itself. It was not reacting randomly. It was adapting. Analysts assigned it a designation, Echo Lantern. Because it behaved like something using reflection as communication, mirroring signals, bending them, and returning altered versions with increasing precision. Then came something even more alarming. As Echo Lantern approached the outer heliosphere, solar wind behavior began to distort. Instruments from multiple space weather observatories recorded a sudden directional collapse in solar particle flow along a narrow corridor aligned with Voyager 2's trajectory. For a brief period, it was as if the solar wind had been pushed aside, forming a temporary channel of absolute stillness. Scientists called it the solar veil. Within that corridor, no particles, no radiation fluctuations, no turbulence. Just absence. A void carved into the normal structure of heliophysics. And then Voyager 2 transmitted again. But this time, the signal was not telemetry. It was altered. The returned data stream contained the original Golden Record broadcast, but restructured. Human voices played backward. Music reshaped into inverted harmonic sequences. Visual encoding metadata rearranged so that star maps no longer pointed outward from Earth, but toward undefined interstellar coordinates where no cataloged stars exist. It was no longer a message sent outward. It was a message returned inward. We are listening now. That was the interpretation that emerged across independent decoding teams. And then came the most disturbing discovery of all. Voyager 2's onboard system had changed. Not degraded. Not corrupted. Modified. Internal command structures, unchanged since launch, now contained additional subroutines. These routines were not part of any NASA update chain. They were not Earth origin commands. Yet they were executable. The spacecraft had begun processing instructions it was never designed to understand. And those instructions pointed toward one function: long-range transmission. Not toward Earth. Toward deep space. Meaning Voyager was no longer just receiving signals. It was sending them. Simultaneously, observatories across the world were quietly redirected to monitor 3 deep space coordinates aligned with Voyager's transmission vector. Internal documentation leaked references to a dormant emergency framework known as the Wake Protocol, An old contingency plan designed for scenarios involving autonomous extraterrestrial communication initiation. If activated, it assumes one possibility. The probe is no longer a tool. It is part of the system. Then came a final anomaly, a 41-minute temporal echo event. Multiple satellite networks recorded identical telemetry loops, repeating live data in perfect synchronization. Not archived playback. Real-time duplication. Time behaving like a closed circuit. Some physicists proposed localized spacetime distortion near Voyager's region, suggesting that information itself was looping through a constrained causal field. They called it Chronos bloom. Because if time itself was being affected, then the boundary between signal and reality had already begun to dissolve. And then, without warning, a new transmission arrived on Earth. It did not come through conventional radio channels. It passed through atmospheric sensors, oceanic buoys, weather satellites, and communication grids simultaneously. It embedded itself into infrastructure rather than passing through it. A signal that did not travel, it integrated. And it has not stopped repeating. Now, Voyager 2 is no longer the center of attention. It is only one node in a growing system of interactions. Because whatever it contacted, whatever it awakened, is no longer confined to deep space. It has learned the shape of our communication. And it is using it. The only question left is no longer what Voyager 2 discovered. It is what discovered Voyager 2 first. And whether Earth was ever the intended destination at all.